In 2024, the Miami Dolphins offense was fast, innovative, and often electric. But when it came to the most basic task in football, gaining 1 or 2 yards, they struggled consistently. Short yardage situations are supposed to be about leverage, execution, and grit, but too often, Miami got pushed backward, drive stalled, momentum vanished, and fans were left wondering, how does a high-powered offense fail at the simplest moments? This chart from Warren Sharp tells the story. The Dolphins had the worst stuff rate in the NFL on these short runs. That's not noise, that's a trend, and it matters. So I went back through the tape. Every one of those stuff runs. Situations where Miami needed 1 or 2 yards and got nothing. And what I found was revealing. Sometimes it's the blocking. Sometimes it's the play design. Sometimes it's just getting out physical. Let's go through it, play by play, the where, the why, and what needs to change if this offense wants to stop getting stonewalled when it matters most. Trying out a new intro and logo. Just seeing what works as I get more into video editing. Let me know what you think. If something feels off or you've got an idea to improve it, drop it in the comments. I'm still learning and trying to get better with each video. Welcome back. I'm Eric Smith, contributor at 5 Reasons Sports and co-host of Scouting the Fins. Today's video was sparked by a tweet from Warren Sharp highlighting the teams with the highest stuff rates in short yardage situations. According to the numbers he shared, the Dolphins got stopped 44% of the time. That definitely caught my attention. So I jumped into NFL Pro and ran some filters. I started with short yardage plays. That gave me 120. Then I filtered it down to runs, which brought the count to 54. And finally, I narrowed it to run stuffs. That left 22 plays. That works out to just under 41%. So, not exactly the same number Warren posted, but that's not really the focus here. What we are going to do is break down all 22 of those stuffed runs, play by play, and take a look at who or what's to blame. And heads up, it's not just the interior offensive line. All right, as we get into the film review here, I'm probably going to lose some of you guys with this first one because it could be blamed on Liam Eichenberg, but I'm not going to put the blame there on this play, and we'll talk about why here. This is going to be a outside zone to the left. Tanner Connor's going to come in motion, and it's essentially going to create a combo block between Armstead and Connor on the edge player and the play side linebacker. Robert Jones is uncovered, so him and Brewer are going to work up to number 54. And then you got Eichenberg and Jackson back here working up to 42. And as we go through this, I want you to watch how that tight end motion is causing those linebackers to shift, right? And that's making those angles tougher on the guards. And yes, right, if we watch this and we watch what happens to Eichenberg here, as he's getting off the ball, he's too high, ends up getting knocked off course by Ed Oliver, never makes it to that linebacker. But at the same time, you can see that once that tight end goes into motion, that Ed Oliver is slanting into Eichenberg, and he's not trying to swim over and make the play here. He's trying to create contact, right? And maybe the better guards are able to make it through there. I'm not as confident in that. So for this one, I'm putting the blame on McDaniel for, the play call, because this motion and then running into it just created poorer angles for the guards, and I felt like it was a bigger issue than any individual player. Next one here is going to be a crack toss to the left, and the blame here is going to be on Ingold. So Ingold is your crack player here. He should be blocking down on the edge player, and then we're going to get Jonnu, Smythe, and Terron Armstead getting outside as Jalen Wright is tossed the ball. So as this play starts, you can see that looking at Ingold here, right, his first steps are kind of flat there. He doesn't really close the distance. That allows that defender to go over top. And the consequence of that, now moving our eyes to Terron Armstead, is that as he's getting around the edge, you can see that his eyes are peeking back in here to number 9. Really we should be able to get outside of Ingold's block here. I think that Terron realizes that Ingold's, getting his ass kicked, so he ends up helping there. That allows 9 to fill that lane and be able to make the tackle. So on this play, I'm putting the blame on Alec Ingold. Next one here, this is going to be another one that I blame on McDaniel. And this is going to be it's an outside zone blocking scheme to the right, but we end up handing it off to Jeff Wilson as the fullback here. And again, right, this is another play where if you really want to, then you can blame it on Rob Jones here not able to get the reach block and get his head across the defensive tackle. But in general, right, the outside zone is a play that's designed to go to the halfback, and his path is going to be more here. Giving it to Wilson puts your path right there. And if you watch the way that this play ends up, taking on that path, right, if he's a little bit wider, maybe it gives us a chance to convert this play. Because we're running a outside zone blocking scheme, but giving it to the fullback, essentially running into the A gap, it allows that backside one technique to get across and make the play. And maybe you could blame it on Jeff Wilson too here, that our power back is going sideways on contact instead of backwards. But again, in the end, I feel like this was just McDaniel trying to get a little too cute, and I'm blaming this one on play calling. And then again here, just getting too cute with the play call. So this is going to be outside zone right blocking scheme, but you can see that it's essentially a fake to the fullback trying to run that same play that got stuffed on the last short yardage situation, and then tossing it to Achane. The problem is that when you toss to Achane like this, it is an outside read all the way. But if we look at how these blocks develop and we think about outside zone blocking, which is essentially what this is, all of these defenders have outside leverage. And right there where Ingold is going, that's where the read would take him on an outside zone. But instead, McDaniel thought that he was, the smartest guy in the stadium that day, and he's pitching the ball outside on a bunch of defenders that have outside leverage and ends up as a disaster. All right, now we're getting a little more traditional dive play to the fullback here. But on this one, you can see that we're getting okay movement at the point of attack here between Jackson and Eichenberg, moving number 55 back. Brewer and Jones are doing just enough, But Durham Smythe here, right, as the ball is snapped, hesitates a little bit. You can see that little bit of hesitation off the snap of the ball. And the result of that is that he doesn't have a good base and gets driven back into the hole. With that movement that Jackson and Eichenberg are getting, all Smythe has to do is to seal out number 56. And Ingold's going to be able to get in there and tuck in behind Jackson and Eichenberg and burrow through for a first down. But because Smythe gets driven back into the core of the offense there, Ingold is not able to do that and ends up getting stopped. So this one goes on Durham Smythe. Last one here that I'm putting on McDaniel. I felt like his play calling got better as the season went on in short yardage scenarios. So this is obviously a jet sweep to Tyreek Hill in a short yardage situation. And a lot of people want to put this on Patrick Paul, and he's laid out of his stance, doesn't take a great angle. That linebacker ends up beating him. So, there is a little bit of blame to go on Paul here. But at the same time, at this point, we're on the hash marks, and Tyreek Hill versus a linebacker, he should be able to win that race to the edge every time. And you can see that he doesn't win, and he ends up hesitating. And instead of, maybe playing through some contact there and being able to get to the edge against this corner, he ends up slowing down and getting taken down, right? So a little bit of blame for Patrick Paul, a little bit of blame for Tyreek Hill, but most of the blame here goes to Mike McDaniel for thinking that a jet sweep in a short yardage situation is the way to go. Next one here, we've got Tyler Huntley at quarterback, and we're going to get some read option here. So on this one, Huntley should be reading the end man on the line of scrimmage typically. So that's number 58 out here. And you can see on the snap of the ball, he's going to jump outside right away. As soon as he's jumping outside, you've got Julian Hill blocking down there. You've got Rob Jones coming around the corner to get this linebacker. If we just keep this and get vertical right now, this is an easy first down and maybe a much bigger play. Instead, he hands off to Achane, and now Ingold not only has the corner out here to deal with, but he's also got the defensive end, and it ends about as predictably bad as you would think. So this was I don't want to blame it on McDaniel. This was a new concept they hadn't really run, trying to play to Tyler Huntley's strengths, but this is one that definitely felt like Huntley should have kept it and got vertical right away. All right, this is another one that might get some argument, and I understand why you'd blame it on the offensive line, but at the same time, when you get into short yardage situations, it's going to get pretty muddy. On this one, so this is going to be a power to the right, and essentially what we're going to get is everybody's trying to block down here. Eichenberg is going to help a little bit, but we're trying to wash everything down. We want Rob Jones to come out, and we want to kick out this defensive end, and the running back steps in, takes the handoff, and scores. But you're going to see that what ends up happening here is that the defensive end plays this very well. Defensive end slants inside hard, which makes it a really tough block for Rob Jones, but he ends up doing a solid job of what we call logging that defensive end. And so the blame for this either goes to McDaniel for trying to go same side handoff on the power play, because it really, that puts Achane on an A-gap path. And, sometimes that may work, but you get a scenario like this and it really limits his options. But I do feel like in terms of reading it, that Achane should be able to see this guy slanting in hard, knowing it's going to be a log block. And as soon as he's getting that handoff, right, you can see that Jones' head is on the outside of that defender, should be jumping outside right away. And he kind of hesitates in here before he gets out there. So it was very muddy, You could assign the blame here a bunch of different ways. In the end, looking for somebody for primary blame, I put this one on Achane, but I would understand if you wanted to assign it somewhere else. Next one here is going to be an outside zone to the left to Raheem Mostert. See that little tap by Terron Armstead? Let's watch again. Watch his right hand tapping his hip. He's telling Mostert to run inside of him. And I think that Mostert maybe took this a little too literal. So as this play is developing, he should be making his decision now. And his decision, right, first read there is Terron Armstead. Armstead told him pre-snap what he was planning on doing. I should go into Rob Jones for the next read. Clearly, Rob Jones has inside leverage on this defender. But Raheem decides to continue to press this to the outside and press it into where the defenders are. Had he, read this properly, the way that Alec Ingold does, right? Ingold's a little bit late there, but he gets there, right? And Brewer is washing stuff out of there. If Mostert cuts this up earlier, you can see how Ingold walks into the end zone, and maybe it wouldn't have been quite that easy, but that play had a much better chance of succeeding if Mostert trusted his reads and cut that back earlier instead of trying to press it to the B gap. So on this one, I assign the blame to Raheem Mostert. All right, this one's going to be on the offensive line. This is going to be a duo concept where they're just reverse pivot, handing to the fullback, and he's just going to try to, dive to that A or B gap. And you can see that Austin Jackson here tries to go to the inside, overshoots his man completely. Defender steps to the backside, and he's the one that makes that play. And yeah, it sucks. But Austin Jackson does enough good stuff in the run game that, I'm not going to ding him too much for this. But obviously, this particular play is one that he's going to get the blame for it not succeeding. On this one, the blame is going to go on Smythe, but it's a tough ask. So this is going to be a duo concept. We're getting a double team there, working to number 43, and then our double team over here working to 42. And what that means is that they're going to ask Durham Smythe to cut off this defensive end. And in a perfect world, he'd get around there, he'd seal him to the outside. But especially if this defensive end slants inside, that's a really tough ask. But minimum, you have to be able to keep him even with the line and give the running back a chance. And you're going to see on this play that he's just not able to get there. He's not quick enough off the snap. Right? The defender's going at the exact same time that he is, and he just doesn't have the power to continue to wash him down to the inside. Ends up with Smythe getting run into the running back, tackle for a loss. Again, that one goes on Durham Smythe. Next one here is going to be outside zone to the left. We're going to get some motion here. And what this motion ends up meaning is that Terron Armstead is on the edge player. We're going to have Alec Ingold leading to this defender that came in the box. Rob Jones on the 3 technique. Brewer working to 43. Eichenberg trying to cut off the 1 technique. And Jackson climbing to this linebacker. And we can see that as this play develops, it is Terron Armstead's guy that makes the tackle. And we could assign the blame here on Alec Ingold. He is the fixer in this offense. You can see that we have a very good-looking lane here to run through. But Armstead's starting to lose leverage there. Wouldn't have taken too much for Ingold to help out, especially in a short yardage play, and let Achane just hammer it in there. Instead, Ingold passes it up, gets to his assignment, but at the cost of Terron Armstead's guy being able to fall off to the inside and make the play. So, would have liked to see Ingold give Armstead some help, but in the end, I assign the blame on this one to Terron Armstead. All right, on this one, we are going to get outside zone to the left. So we're going to have Julian Hill and Jonnu Smythe working through this edge defender up to the linebacker here. We're going to have Armstead and Jones working to the linebacker here. And then we got this safety walking up late, so it's going to be Brewer and Eichenberg. Their combo is essentially going to go to him. But I want you to focus on Hill and Smythe on this play. And as you can see here, they both end up leaving that edge defender, and he's the one who's able to run in and make the play. Would have liked to see Jonnu get fit a little better into that, but in the end, as we're watching the way this is playing out, right, Julian Hill really had no reason to leave that edge player. That linebacker is coming to the inside, so he should be Jonnu Smythe's. Would have liked to see Julian Hill just kind of wheel around, settle, and seal that defender to the inside. So blame on this one on the combo block with two tight ends. Going to put this one on Julian Hill. This is going to be another one that you can assign blame in multiple places. You have Eichenberg is going to the wrong linebacker, and that doesn't help at all. Eichenberg should be working up to number 58 there, and he's obviously getting in there and making part of the play. But you've also got Alec Ingold coming across the formation on duo here and just completely whiffing, and that's the first player that makes contact. And in my opinion, right, had we been able to secure that block and keep that path just a little more to the left, then that may have been enough to convert that first down, but ends up getting stopped. Like I said, if you want to assign this one on Eichenberg, go ahead. But I felt like if we're, trying to identify one person that's primarily responsible, I'm going to go with the fullback that completely whiffs on the block, and his defender is the first one to create contact. And as we're finding out here, nobody's completely safe in the blame with the short yardage issues. This one is going to go on Aaron Brewer. And the reason is that, we're running outside zone on the goal line, which I'm okay with. And the front side of this isn't great. We don't get great movement from Kendall Lamm. But when you look at how the blocks should be read, that's where that first read is going to be. That read right now should be telling Achane to hammer it in there through the B gap. But instead, the combo block on the front side here between Eichenberg and Brewer up to number 7. Number 7 is going to shoot that backside A gap. Brewer is, basically burrowing through that defensive tackle's hip, which prevents him from being able to see and adjust to number 7. And he's the one that comes in and doesn't make the play, but he's a big reason why they're not able to try to cut this up. And, not that Achane would have been able to power through there with certainty, but I would have rather see him have an opportunity to try to score in that B gap as opposed to taking it wider where Lamm does not have the leverage. All right, here we go. The one that a lot of you may have been waiting for, the one that I do assign primary blame on Liam Eichenberg. So this is going to be, again, another one of those power concepts where everybody's blocking down, and we've got Rob Jones pulling across. And as Eichenberg's working to the backside here, he's going to try to help there. Brewer's giving a little chip there, and both of them are falling off to the next defender. And we've got Lamm coming across to eventually take over Eichenberg's guy, right? Should be able just to wash all that down together. But Eichenberg, on his initial contact, is knocked off balance, knocked backwards. You can see that results in his left foot and Jones's left foot colliding together, creates a pile up in the middle, and another failed conversion. This one here, we're getting a duo concept to the left. And this is kind of an awkward and tough block for Jonnu Smythe. He's going to start to come in motion, then have to reverse field and try to get to Haason Reddick on the edge there. And you can see that when he turns, he loses his feet. Haason Reddick is able to dip around the corner there, untouched, able to make the play. So tough ask of the tight ends here, but in the end, the failure to even get a piece of Haason Reddick is the reason this failed. So this one's going on Jonnu. Here's another one that could certainly go under the poor play call category. Any play that Terron Armstead is asked to block number 56 is probably going to be a losing proposition. But this is going to be a duo to the left. And unlike inside and outside zone, in duo, they're typically reading the play side linebacker here. And on this one, we're going to see that Sherwood fills to the outside of the offense. So typically that would indicate a cutback run for the running back. But if you watch Julian Hill here as he tries to block down on this defender, you can see that gets eliminated from being an option. All right, so again, kind of looks like maybe laid off the snap there. You can see that everybody else is stepping just a split second sooner, but that makes all the difference in the NFL. Like I said, Sherwood is going to the outside there. Typically, you'd want to see Achane be able to keep this to the inside, maybe cut it all the way back, but this defender staring him right in the face, completely understand why he would have tried to bounce that. So on this play, my blame goes on Julian Hill. All right, this one is going to go on Patrick Paul, but this is an example of one that I think will be cleaned up with more experience. So as we look at the defense right now, looking at the players in the box and that need to be accounted for, looking at outside zone, this should be Julian Hill blocking 96. Ingold would work up to number 48. And then we'd have a combo between Rob Jones and Patrick Paul working number 39. And the backside combo here would work up to this defender, right? And then we just have the cutoff block from Jackson Carman. But what doesn't get accounted for here is that we have number 23 walking up laid into the box. And you can see him right here. So that bumps everybody over one. So instead of Ingold going to 48, he should now be going to 23. Patrick Paul working to 48. Aaron Brewer to number 39. Now we're leaving this defender unblocked, and the combination block here is working up to number 20, right? And eyes on Patrick Paul here. You can see that as he gets off the ball, right, his eyes are looking to the inside here. He does not realize that the assignments have adjusted until he sees Aaron Brewer going for the same guy, late getting number 48. 48's obviously able to scrape over and make the tackle. But again, this is all because of a player walking up late into the box and a rookie left tackle not adjusting to it. So blame for this one absolutely goes on Patrick Paul, but this isn't a ability issue. This is a experience issue that I'm confident will get cleaned up in 2025. All right, so on this one, we are getting duo to the right. And as we talked about before, he's looking at the play side linebacker, which, as the motion goes, is going to be number 30 here. And you're going to see number 30 is getting over top of this play. So reading that linebacker, running back should be looking to cut this back. But you can see that, maybe you can put some of this on Julian Hill. You can see Kendall Lamm trying to help him out a little bit before climbing to number 30. You can see there that number 30 is poking his head to the outside. So Mostert should be looking to cut right there between that, where the B gap is now. It obviously moved, but not able to do that. Kind of similar to what we saw with Liam Eichenberg on the earlier play, that Lamm is not able to absorb that contact. He ends up getting walked back 4 or 5 yards and closes down the ability for that run to cut back. So blame for that one, Kendall Lamm. And the next one here, this is also going to be on Kendall Lamm, and didn't really like the play calling here. It's essentially a crack toss and going to have Durham looking to seal that defender. He ends up slanting to the inside, so there's no reason to block him. But you're going to get Kendall Lamm pulling to the outside here. And I don't know whether somebody else was supposed to block number 30, whether they were hoping for Malik Washington to be able to get him. But you can see that as the play starts, Kendall Lamb's got his eyes on him. If Kendall Lamb's just able to get a piece of that defender, right, get his hands on him at all, then we're going to be able to cut this up and at least convert for a first down. But instead, Lamm completely whiffs on the block. His guy ends up making the play. So maybe not the way that the play was intended to be run there, but sometimes you got to adjust on the fly. You can see that Lamm knows the adjustment that needs to be made, but completely whiffs on number 30, and that's who makes the play. Blame goes to Lamm. All right, last one we're going to look at here. Blame's going to go on Isaiah Wynn. This is going to be an inside zone to the right. Inside zone to the left. So Terron Armstead blocking out. You're going to have Rob Jones blocking out. Essentially going to have a combo over there working up to number 44, which means that Isaiah Wynn has to block the one technique there, and Patrick Paul blocking number 72. And as the play starts, running back is going to be reading number 96 here and reading the relationship of Brewer and Jones on him. And you can see that Brewer has that inside leverage and the linebacker's going to the outside. This read is backside A-gap all the way. But that can't happen because Isaiah Wynn kind of gets stuck in a neutral position. This is where you can't be, where your feet don't move at all. There's no movement whatsoever. You can either wash that defender down or you can create some vertical movement, and either one of those, right? Or, even get your body all the way around and be able to set an anchor just to give a little crease there. But none of that happens. Looks like he's trying to wheel around, gets backed up a step or two, and that's the reason that the running back can't cut back into that lane. All right, if you stuck with me this far, thanks for hanging in. As you probably noticed, assigning blame isn't always black and white. There's some subjectivity to it, and I tried to call that out where I felt it was debatable. By my count, I had McDaniel's play calling as the main issue on 4 of the failed conversion, then 2 apiece for Alec Ingold, Julian Hill, Kendall Lamm, and Durham Smythe. After that, it spreads out, 1 each for a handful of other guys, including every offensive lineman that was in the top 8 for total snaps. So yeah, it wasn't just one problem or one position group. It was a mix. And if Miami wants to fix their short yardage issues, they've got to address it from multiple angles. Appreciate you watching, and if you've got thoughts, hit the comments. I'm always trying to sharpen the way I look at these plays.